Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. Brought to you by Blue Sky Business Consulting. We discuss 5 questions in about 15 minutes. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We're excited to have you joining us. And again, our guest today is Marcelo Calbucci, and he is the author of the book, The PRFAQ Framework. And he's also a technology executive and a founder of a startup. So he does all sorts of fun little things here. But Marcelo, thank you so much for taking time to be on the podcast today. Tell us a little bit more about this book, the PRFAQ Framework.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me, Sean. This is a great podcast, and I'm glad I'm here. I learned about the PRFAQ framework when I worked at Amazon a few years ago, and it's a fascinating framework. PRFAQ stands for Press Release and Frequently Asked Questions, and it's part of Amazon's working backwards practices, right, on how you discover, debate, and decide on strategy and vision for a new product, for a new business, for a new program or policy, or even process within the organization. It is widely used within Amazon, so it's tested and tried and true, and tested in the wild. And I was wondering, why aren't more startup founders or product leaders or executives using this framework? So when I left Amazon, I decided to write a book about it to spread the word about.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. And you and I had talked a little bit more about it, and I think it's a fantastic model and a framework. So I encourage everyone to go out and buy his book, check it out, and apply it to whatever business situation, team situation that makes sense for you to do so. So very good. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started with our questions then today. So Marcelo, sometimes you probably have experienced this as a leader in business, but sometimes a team will kind of fall into a little bit of a lull and their energy levels kind of drop. How can a leader infuse energy into their team?
That's a great question. And the first thing I would do is to try to diagnose the problem, right? What's behind that? Before you try to fix anything and apply any solution, you have to know what problem you're dealing with. And if you think about your employees as your customers, like you're solving a problem for your customers. So think like that. 3 things that I've seen a lot is seasonality. Every industry, every function goes through some weird type of seasonality. Like on finance, like they have fiscal years that dictate a lot of the time and the intensity of their work. A lot of people in retail, have lots of things that happen just before the holidays. So you need to look at, is this a seasonality problem or not a seasonality problem, right? If it is a seasonality problem, maybe there is no problem to be solved. You just wait and, things are going to get better. You just try to smooth the curve, I guess. The second thing that I've seen a lot as well, Sean, is low productivity or low yield. What I mean by that is people are putting a lot of effort, but they are not seeing the output or the outcomes that they would expect from that effort. So it feels like you're in a treadmill, try to run a 5K to the grocery store, but you're not leaving, where you stand. And it's very frustrating. Right. So teams tend to lose a lot of energy when they do that. And if you think about the information knowledge worker, that happens a lot when you produce this document, you produce proposals, or you do things and they go nowhere. So you feel low energy. The third thing, I think it is the most important one of them all, is autonomy. Right? Do people feel like they have control over their career, over their work, of how their work gets done? If you give a little bit more autonomy to folks, usually it's a huge boost of motivation for them. So these are 3 observations. Of course, there's more. Like I said, you need to look and try to diagnose what the root of the problem is.
Oh, I really like those answers. Those are some great tips on how to diagnose and evaluate the problem. And, you're right. You said it earlier, but sometimes there is a seasonality about certain industries. And sometimes you do just kind of have to smooth that little curve out and just get past it and get to the summer months if you're a summer person or whatever it is. But great tips overall on how to diagnose problems and then how you can address them. Wonderful. Question number 2. How do you promote learning within your company?
Yeah, I'm going to tie back to the previous answer, which is you have to create a culture of autonomy, right? If people don't feel like they have autonomy, they have no desire to learn new things, right? And they're not going to be curious about how else they could do their job or think about new things for the organization. So once there is a culture of autonomy and I'm giving you the power to change a few things in the organization, you go and start to learn about it. Like you feel the desire to learn, right? You're motivated by that. And nowadays is more important than ever because in the age of AI, a lot of how the work gets done is going to change. And if you don't give people the autonomy to try new things and experiment on how they do their work, you're going to fall behind in your organization. So that's step one. Step two is really, giving people autonomy so they can decide what gets done, not only how it gets done, right? It doesn't have to be all at once, but giving people latitude to think innovative about, the result of their work, like what they produce, right? What products they are building or programs they are running, and how that impacts customers. So give people room, and they will chase that learning.
Oh, very good. Great ideas. Yeah, I'm obviously a big proponent of encouraging people to learn within their jobs or so forth. And you've provided some great ideas on how to do that and to allow people that autonomy to kind of go figure that out. So wonderful. All right, question number 3. Share one tip for effective delegation.
I don't think this is new or mind blowing, but like basically, you need to tell people the outcome and the output that you're trying to get, not prescribing them the work to do, right? So move away from telling them exactly the activity that you want them to execute and tell them what you're trying to achieve with that. That's a very important one. And I know you asked for one, but I'm going to give you two.
Sure.
The second one is, and this is a hard-earned lesson for me, really, and it's very, very practical, very useful, which is be always explicit about deadline and priorities. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I learned the hard way is when you tell someone like, hey, can you take a look at this because this is the outcome we want to achieve, they tend to drop everything else, right? And go chase that without even you telling them this is important or not important. This should come ahead, or this is for this month or next month. So try to be very explicit about if you have a deadline and when you expect and how important it is for you and for the organization right now, so your employees can prioritize it correctly.
Really like, especially that second tip about being very, very clear about the expectations of the delivery and why, because that is the part that will trip up a lot of people in the delegation. Some people are like, oh, this doesn't seem that important. So the deadline is probably wishy-washy at best. I don't really have to meet the deadline, whatever it is. So I think that your advice to really be clear and emphasize those key parts, really important. So excellent. Love that. All right, question number 4. How do you communicate your company's purpose and vision to your team? What's an effective way to communicate those things?
Yeah, I'm going to call this the softball question, Sean. And I know you love baseball.
Yes.
But that's an easy one for me because while working at Amazon, I learned about the PRFAQ framework. And that's how you communicate, purpose and vision to your team. And the PRFAQ is a tool to discuss strategy and vision and for the team to collaborate on it. So in a way, you're not communicating, you're not giving your team, a purpose and vision. They are part of creating it. So they feel ownership on that. So I encourage people to read about the PRFAQ and understand how it can be used in their environment for a new product, a new program, business, service, or whatever they're doing.
Awesome. That sounds like a great idea. All right, question number 5. Here's kind of the last one. Tell us a little bit about your favorite, or first, I should say, your first job. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. When I was 13 years old, my father gave me a computer. This was the 80s. And he actually asked me, or he paid me to write a piece of software to catalog all his vinyl collection. So that we could search for like a song or an artist or an album title, and I wrote that software, and my father paid me, I don't know, equivalent of like $40. But at 13 years old, that was quite a bit of money. And I consider like that my first professional piece of software. So that was a great experience that put me on this career path of
Oh, that's
technology.
really cool. We're roughly the same age because I remember the 80s and I remember computers and I remember how it had to be programmed way back in those days. And it was very tedious. And so that's
Yes.
impressive. But as a 13-year-old, you had the discipline to tediously code. We take it for granted now that searching is such an easy thing. I mean,
Yes.
it's really not, but you figured out how to do it at age 13 way back in the 80s. So that's
Yeah,
impressive.
and there was no Spotify back then, so you had to really catalog all your vinyls if you wanted to listen to a song.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that. That's great. Well, congratulations on a successful first job then. And
Yeah.
again, thank you so much, Marcelo, for taking time to be on the podcast today. Tell us a little bit about how people can get a hold of you and find you.
Yeah, I'm very available on LinkedIn. You can find my name and I'm there. I'm going to respond messages. The best way is probably going to my book's website. Just go to Google and search for PRFAQ book. It's likely going to be the first result there. You click on the link, and on the website there is all the connections that you can use to find me.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks again to all of you who are participating either by watching or listening to the podcast. We appreciate it if you would subscribe or add it to your listen list or however you do it on whatever platform you're listening to. But we appreciate it very much. Thanks so much for joining us and have a great day. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also invite you to follow or subscribe to our podcast wherever you may be listening or watching. Is your business thriving? Go to tbs-score.com to find out. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.